You're listening to the Manuscript of Soul. Part 1, Chapter 8. The Earth Before They Left. Jared woke up in the middle of the night in his hospital bed. Laura breathed peacefully in the bed next to him. Outside, the heavy rain was still drumming against the walls. He felt as though he'd been woken from a strange dream, but he couldn't remember it, so he wasn't sure. Then suddenly, a familiar, painful sting crashed through his head, and he heard a voice from within. "I wanted to kill you, but I spared you." Jared opened his eyes with great effort, only to feel an agonizing stab like a knife straight into his eyes. He hoisted himself up onto the bed and staggered towards the door, grimacing in pain. "Then why didn't you do it?" His voice was just a faint, strained croak. His throat seemed constricted. He heard a shrill laugh that seemed to come from far away. It was as if he himself were, on the inside, a huge and hollow empty space in which only her voice and pain existed. He continued to stagger towards the hospital's large entrance door, which led outside. "The wind whispered to me that you little humans want to run away to a new and wonderful world that's just waiting for you to destroy it." Her voice grew angrier with every word, and the angrier she got, the more lightheaded Jared felt, and the harder it became for him to take one step after another. "Get out of my head," he gasped, pressing his hand to his temple as he threw himself against the hospital door. Once again she let a horribly shrill laugh hiss through his body. The cold rain that was now pelting his face felt good, and he turned his face towards the ceaseless downpour. "You're not better than we are," he groaned.
"Why do you think that?"
"Because you want revenge." "No." It sounded like a thunder and crashed through his body.
"Tell me, does the tide seek revenge against the shore as it recedes? And when the winter comes, does it hate the leaves?"
"What is that if not punishment?" Jared asked with all he had left in his body.
"Punish!"
Suddenly it seemed like the pain got less and her voice sounded almost pitying this time.
"Humans always believe everything is about them."
She laughed again, and then continued with a soft, almost singing voice.
"You forgot."
"Forgot what?"
"Whom this world belonged to before you named it yours."
"Then again, why didn't you kill me?"
"Because I need a witness. When your people tell the story of what happened here, they will lie, but you won't."
Jared woke with a violent gasp, his lungs burning as he bolted upright in bed and stared into the darkness of the hospital room. His heart pounded against his ribs. Laura stirred beside him and suddenly flinched. "What's wrong?" "She was here," his voice trembled. "Minerva, she was here." Laura pushed herself up on one elbow. "You had a nightmare." He shook his head violently. "No, she was here." He pressed a hand against his temple, where the throbbing pain had been only moments ago. Suddenly he felt an icy chill creeping over his skin. He touched his hair and looked down. His hospital gown was clinging to his body. His hair was dripping into his face, and the sheets beneath him were soaked. Laura noticed it at exactly the same moment as he did. "You were outside," she said. "What happened?" Jared stood up from his bed. His limbs were shaking. It was like her voice crept through my body again, just like it was the last time. "I was in so much pain. I left the bed. I don't really know why. I walked outside. I just needed to see her." He swallowed, still staring at the water dripping from his sleeves. "Minerva." Laura got out of bed and slowly walked towards him. "She said she had wanted to kill me, that she almost did." He looked up at Laura as if hoping she could somehow make sense of it all. "But then she said I had to remember, that I had to tell a story." "Why didn't you wake me up?" "Listen, I don't know," he groaned. Laura walked past him and towards the door of the hospital. "Laura, wait," he called and walked after her. "She's dangerous." But Laura already passed the hospital door to find the full moon reflected in a mirror-like body of water so still, as though it had never been and could never be disturbed. as though the storm had never existed. Wide-eyed, Jared stepped outside and came to stand beside her, staring breathlessly at the sky, sprinkled with countless stars. "That's impossible." Laura looked Jared up and down, who was still soaking wet. "It is her." Jared brushed his wet hair out of his face. Neither of them spoke much for the rest of the night. They returned to their room before dawn, but neither of them slept again. When the first rays of sunlight crept through the hospital windows, bathing the corridor and their room in a warm orange glow, Laura stood up and walked into the corridor. "Jared," she called out excitedly. "Look, there, they're coming." Jared looked up, still dazed, before hurrying after her. They saw a ship in the distance, clearly moving towards the hospital. They stood at the threshold, watching as the ship drew closer. Laura shouted, "Hello!" They could see two people standing at the railing. One of them was the doctor they had seen during their last visit. She was waving. For a brief moment, Jared glanced towards the vast body of water. It remained perfectly still, offering no trace that anything extraordinary had happened. Jared slowly raised his hand in return. When the ship came to a stop at the bridge, Jared and Laura walked towards the doctor and the other woman. They were carrying crates. "Hello, Miss Callister and Mr. Stone," the doctor said. "What are you doing here?" "We arrived yesterday," Laura said, "because of the DNA results for the spaceflight." "How on earth did you manage that, with that storm? I didn't expect anyone to come. And I didn't expect the storm to end so abrupt," she added. "On the way here I saw the extent of the destruction. Almost all bridges and piers are gone now. Hardly anything but boats are still moving. What does the hospital look like?" She glanced past them at the building they had just come out of. "The hospital is still intact," Jared answered. "It was really bad. We barely made it here in time. It was so close. It could have ended terribly." Together they continued towards the hospital. Once inside, the doctor and her assistant placed the boxes on the reception desk. As she turned around, her expression changed. It was only now that she seemed to notice how exhausted they both looked. "You two look terrible. Did you actually got any sleep last night?" "Not really." Jared didn't seem quite present and gazed out of the window. "This is the first batch of DNA results. I don't know how many people will come to pick up their results. I don't know how many people even have survived." She opened the cardboard box and began searching through the many envelopes looking for the names. "Thank you for coming today," Jared said. She didn't look up from the envelopes. "Oh, you're welcome. I'm here almost every day," the doctor replied while she continued inspecting the letters one by one and pulled one out. Only these last few days I couldn't, because of the storm." "Where did you sleep?" she asked, briefly looking up. "We slept in that room," Laura said, pointing toward it. "I hope you don't mind. I tried to leave everything the way we found it." "Thank you." "Ah, here's the last one." She pulled a third envelope from the pile. The doctor disappeared behind the counter with the boxes of envelopes and fetched some documents. "Do you know how you will proceed once you have the positive results?" she asked. No, not really. As far as we've been told, the launch will take place in French Guiana, 2 weeks from now. They should come to collect everyone here in about a week. Everyone will be picked up by a ship. Everyone who has been selected to leave will travel with the ship to French Guiana to the launch site. There will be a gathering camp with everyone, me included. We'll be told the exact day once everything has been arranged. "Where's the child, by the way?" she asked. "Didn't you have a little girl with you last time?" "Yes, Elspeth stayed at home with a friend," Laura said. "Okay, it would be best if you all came here, so you don't miss the launch. I don't really know how to reach everyone. You can choose any room you like, but don't go upstairs. Up there—" "We know," Laura said. "We already had an encounter with the upper floor." Is the door still closed?" she asked. "Yes." "It's enough if you're here at the beginning of next week," she said. "Then you can choose a good spot, because I think it might get crowded in here." "I will try to get hold of as many people as possible," Jared nodded. "Okay, we will be here," he said. "Oh, and one more thing," the doctor said as she began storing the crates under the counter. "If possible, please bring some provisions, as much as you can. I have some things on my boat which I'll store here. But it will definitely not be enough for everyone, and it's better to have too much than too little. We'll manage. We'll see what we can do. They started moving towards the exit. Wait, the doctor said. How are you getting back home? Jared looked outside. The pier leading to the train was just barely above the water surface, but he didn't know what the piers at home looked like, whether they were still usable or already swallowed by the rising water. When he thought of the huge waves on the day of their arrival, he couldn't imagine they had survived the storm. I'll drive you home, the doctor said, and before Jared or Laura could respond, she walked towards them. Relieved, they followed her. They boarded the small boat together and steered it through the masses of water. She had been right. Many parts of the bridges and even the tracks were destroyed now. With a sinking feeling, Jared thought about the train driver. How he must be doing now. He wanted to believe the man had survived and forced himself to think of something else. By the way, you can call me Jane, the doctor interrupted his thoughts. I'm Laura and this is Jared. Jane smiled and guided the three of them further through the waves. They sat in silence for some time when Laura followed Jared's gaze towards the flooded tracks. You haven't said more than 5 words since we left the hospital. Have I? He didn't look up. No, I counted. Jared didn't answer immediately. It's just everything. Yesterday I thought we'd die out here, and suddenly everything is as if nothing happened. She looked at him for a moment before turning back towards the water. We don't have to figure it all out today. Jared frowned, eyes still pinned on the calm water. He was afraid that if he looked long enough, she would appear again. As though seeing her first might somehow spare him the helplessness he had felt the night before. What a foolish thought. One cannot be prepared to meet a god. When they reached the pier, they saw that it was about centimeters under the water. They stopped just before it. Thank you, Jared said, before stepping onto the submerged pier. The icy water surged up around his calves, splashing against his trousers. He steadied himself for a moment before turning back towards the boat. Give me your hand. Laura reached for him. He tightened his grip as she stepped down beside him, the water breaking around her legs, before they climbed the rope ladder together. No problem, Jane said. Shall I pick you up again next week and bring you to the hospital? Jared just reached the rooftop. That would be very kind, he said, and felt incredibly grateful for her willingness to help. All right, she said, and set her boat back in motion. When Laura had climbed up as well, Elspeth came running out of the door. Papa, she shouted and ran into Jared's arms. Behind her, Boyle appeared in the doorway, with deep sunken eye circles. Finally, he said, relieved. I was so worried. He hugged Laura and Jared. We had to stay there, Jared said. There was no way back. I'm so glad nothing happened to you. I'm glad too, said Jared and picked Elspeth up in his arms. They sat together on the floor of the apartment on a blanket in front of the fireplace to warm up their cold bones. What happens next? Boyle asked. The doctor, Jane, she'll pick us up next week. There will be a gathering camp at the hospital, and we will travel to French Guiana by boat, where the spaceship will launch, Laura answered, and Boyle nodded. That's good. But his eyes were sadder than Laura had ever seen them. She placed her hand on his arm and leaned her head against his shoulder. Boyle put his hand on her arm. It's all right, he said. You can still come with us. There must still be a way to take the test. No, Boyle said. I've made my decision. It's the right thing for me. Jared pulled the envelopes out of his pocket and looked around. Laura lifted her head from Boyle's shoulder. The first envelope bore the name Laura Callister. His thumb lingered on her name for a brief moment before he placed it into her hands. Her eyes skimmed over the first paragraphs. Genome Diversity Index, Recessive Disorder, Risk Profile. She ignored the technical language until one line caught her eye. Status? Not selected for transmission. Laura? She didn't answer right away. She kept staring at the page. What is it? Slowly she lowered the letter. Without a word she placed it into Jared's hands. He turned pale as he read it. At first he didn't quite believe what he was seeing. He read it again and again. Jared, she said, but he heard her as if from far away. He kept reading the same lines over and over. again and again, trying to understand what they meant. His ears were roaring and the paper slipped from his hand. Jared stared into nothingness. Laura picked up the letter and her eyes darted across the lines again. She drew a deep breath and her hand moved to her mouth in shock. Boyle took the paper from her, and his eyebrows pulled together, his shoulders sank. He folded the paper with great care before placing it on the floor. Jared tore open the next envelope, the one addressed to him. He read the lines. His eyes flew across the page until they found the line he has been dreading. Status not selected for transmission. He stared at it, frozen. No. His jaw tightened. With a sharp tearing sound, he ripped the letter in half and hurled it across the room with full force. Then he reached for the last envelope, Elspeth Stone. His hands trembled as he broke the seal. His eyes skimmed over the first lines. Genome diversity and next projected reproductive viability. His eyes stopped. Status selected for transmission.